1 Peter chapter 4, Peter makes this incredible statement. He says, if you are insulted for the name of Christ, you are blessed, because the Spirit of glory and of God rests upon you. But then let none of you suffer as a murderer, or a thief, or an evildoer, or as a meddler. Yet if anyone suffers as a Christian, let him not be ashamed, but let him glorify God in that name. For judgment is to come, beginning with the household of God. And if it begins with us, what will the outcome be for those who do not obey the gospel of God? I'm Dr. Chuck Betters, and I welcome you to this edition of Ask Dr. Betters. We hope to be able to address some very difficult questions, and we have one here that goes something like this. I hope this brings some solution for you in this regard. It says, how is the suffering we bring upon ourselves by our choices different or the same as the suffering God gives us to mature? And then he gives this illustration. It says, my sister-in-law is struggling with drug addiction. My brother wants to take comfort in the fact that God has appointed this suffering. But to me, this suffering seems self-imposed. Isn't my sister-in-law suffering as a result of her choices? Well, yes and no, because there is a distinct difference between suffering because of our own evil choices and suffering as the result of someone else's evil choices. So in this particular situation, the person who has the drug addiction is suffering because of her own choices. But the husband in this particular case, who is living with a wife who is addicted to drugs, is suffering because of the choices that she has made in her life. Well, now he has a choice to make. He can either understand the addiction that his wife is enduring and embrace it as part of that for better or worse aspect of marriage, in sickness and in health part of marriage, and ask God to give him the strength, or he can condemn his wife. He can say, this is not my doing, this is your doing, and I am suffering because of the choices you are making. So it is true that he is suffering because of the choices that she is making. Well, now the question becomes, according to Peter, how do we reflect that back to the glory of God? How do we embrace that suffering that he is enduring as the result of his wife's bad choices? How do we endure it in such a way that we are able to reflect the glory of God in this marriage? Well, his job, his task is to love his wife as Christ loved the church. Well, how did Christ love us? He loved us in spite of our sins. He loved us in spite of our rebellion. We sin again and again and again and again, and God continues to love us, to forgive us, to give us his grace to overcome. And so the challenge that this man has is, how do I reflect the love that Christ has for his church in my own personal marriage? Yes, we do suffer in this world as a result of the sins of others. We live in a broken world, a fallen world. That's why we have natural disasters, and that's why we have disease, and that's why we have broken relationships, because we live in that broken and fallen world. But how are we to live in that broken and fallen world? How are we reflect the glory of God? In those circumstances, we are able to show the love of Christ to others who observe us. You know, Christians get addicted to drugs just like non-Christians do. Christians have cancer just like non-Christians do. Christians lose their children just like non-Christians do. Everything that happens to a non-believer also happens to a believer, because the Bible tells us it rains on the just and the unjust alike. But we are, as Christians, to show the world the difference between how a non-believer responds and how we respond. We are to respond in love, in grace, in mercy. That man is to reach out to his wife. He is to minister to her. And yes, because of her choices, suffering has been appointed to him as well as to her. But with that suffering comes an opportunity, as Peter tells us, to reflect the glory of God. Because right before those verses, Peter says this, don't think it's strange concerning the fiery trial which is to come to you, as though something strange happened to you. But rejoice insofar as you share Christ's sufferings, that you may also rejoice and be glad when his glory is revealed. We have the glory of God at stake here in how you respond to your wife, how you respond to her brokenness. I want to encourage you also to visit markinc.org for some resources that we have developed on drug addiction from the mouths of those who have been there. And hopefully this will be a great opportunity for you to get some help that you desperately need. I hope this is helpful.